if you look at the majority of people who've made it, they tell you the path was miserable. It's okay if you don't like being an entrepreneur, if you don't think it fits you, it's fine. It's not supposed to fit you.
You have all this background in advertising and marketing.
Marketing is essential, right? So you have to market the product. I don't believe in the story that built a great product and the customers will come, but I've seen amazing products that nobody knew about and that eventually died. And I've seen extremely bad products that were super successful because they were marketed well, right? Because we have an understanding of the layers in our business, we were able to build a product that's entirely unique for the industry, and all we have to do now is talk about it. Just because someone wants to throw money at you, it doesn't mean you want to take it necessarily. We've had opportunities where we said no to capital because they weren't good money for us. At the time, it seemed like a problem because we wanted their money, we didn't get their money, and we're like, oh no, what now? Sometimes a bad situation ends up being a good situation when you look back.
You're also the proud owner of the most upvoted Reddit post.
It just blew up. Like everybody was talking about it. It became the most upvoted Reddit post of all time. It still is. And coming and saying we're the guys behind the most upvoted Reddit post of all time gave us that credibility. And then we realized that we had that, and we would start every conversation with that, and the close rate would jump from 1% to 50%. You need to figure out what you're trying to generate or build with that campaign, right? People will say, oh, I'm trying to generate money. It's not that easy.
From your perspective, what would be like, I don't know, the anatomy of a viral campaign, or how can you get there? Is there some tips and tricks?
So it has to be short and punchy, it has to have great timing, and it has to be very culturally relevant in the conversation that's happening.
With all this generated AI content, how will we know what's true and what's not? What filters can we build for ourselves?
We are going to learn how to navigate through it, and the better you know how to navigate, the better you'll be as a person.
So welcome, Matei. Thank you for joining us at Startup Talks podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Let's just continue our talk because we started like a half an hour ago. And one of the first questions I have, because you have all this background in advertising and marketing and so on and so forth, and Blindspot is a product built in this industry. How relevant do you see this founder market fit looking back at what you did at Blindspot?
I mean, I think it's essential. The same way that, a founder always has to do sales, and a founder is always selling one way or another, even if it's a technical founder, right? Marketing is essential, right? So you have to market the product. I don't believe in the story that built a great product and the customers will come. It doesn't work like that. It's a very nice fairy tale, but I've seen amazing products that nobody knew about and that eventually died. And I've seen extremely bad products that were super successful because they were marketed well.
The right way.
Yeah. So you definitely have to learn how to market your product, how to market to your people, whoever your consumers are. And if you don't have that skill, it's time to learn it. Funny enough, although this is not a popular opinion, you can be a founder without being a technical one. I'm not a technical founder. I understand enough now to do kind of no-code stuff and be able to kind of project manage a technical initiative, but I'm not a coder. I don't write code. Despite that, I'm here and I can build a business. But a technical founder who has zero marketing or sales or soft skills is very unlikely to succeed. Not impossible. I'm sure there are cases out there, but the chances are close to zero.
Yep. And I mean, I would consider you a technical founder, but not a coder. Technical from the perspective of the industry that you are right now operating in, because you know how the industry works. And basically, this is what I'm trying to understand, like, how helpful was that for you? And if you believe that if you don't have, as an early stage founder, if you don't have that know-how about the industry, can you succeed?
I think it's essential to have, let's kind of define it. I have technical understanding.
Exactly,
right?
exactly, yeah.
It's extremely important to understand the technical layers of what's happening in your industry or in your product or whatever. You don't necessarily need to have technical skills in the sense that,
Yep.
you know, I understand how this microphone works. I'm not able to build this microphone from scratch,
Obviously.
right? Kind of that's the difference.
Yeah.
But the first part is extremely important because otherwise you're just guessing. Otherwise, you don't really know which buttons to push in order to make things work for your business. Like, we know what we need to do in order to get people onboarded and to get people excited about our business. We built, because we have an understanding of the layers in our business, we were able to build a product that's entirely unique for the industry, and all we have to do now is talk about it. And we see the excitement every time I talk to someone and I tell them, you can use our platform, it's completely transparent, you can sign up and you can be on almost any digital billboard in the world for a few dollars per hour. Their eyes immediately light up, you know. So we're at the stage where
Mine
we have
also, when I heard
that's what people get, you know. But it took us a while to get there because other companies that tried the same thing eventually didn't understand that that's the core value of what they're selling, and eventually pivoted to kind of a walled garden approach where they're like, yeah, I'm just going to sell to Coca-Cola because they have hundreds of millions and I have an intro there and one deal is worth it, which is not wrong, but that's kind of a service-based business. It's not a technical startup. You know, you can build an agency, you can become a consultant, and you can live a great life doing that. It's not wrong, but it's a different industry altogether. So that's kind of why it's important to understand what makes things tick in your industry and push forward in that direction.
Why did you build Blindspot?
I think the greatest reason to build any business, and we had the same thing, is to fix a problem that you had. You know, that we had this problem. We wanted to run an ad on a billboard and we couldn't. Nobody would take our money because we were just some guys that had like $500. And we realized that, hey, this is a problem worth solving. And I think there's another reason we built this. Everybody told us it can't be done. And because both me and my co-founders have this stubborn mindset, every time somebody would tell us, no, the industry would never accept this. We're like, okay, so you're telling me to do it, right? No, I'm telling you there's no chance in hell you'll do it. Okay, so I should definitely do it, right? So that's kind of, if anybody would have told us, that's an easy problem to solve, we probably would have stopped working on it. So those are the two reasons. One, we've had that problem, and second, it was a very difficult problem to solve. And it's interesting because it's not only difficult from a technical perspective, it's also difficult from a business ecosystem perspective. Like, you know, the incentives are not lined up. A media agency's incentive is to keep things as opaque as possible and not give transparent access to what's happening with the money. And there's a reason for that. And when we come in and say, no, everything is transparent, some people love it, some people hate it, and you have to kind of know how to navigate those waters.
Depends where the money are coming from.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when was the moment when it started from your problem, but when did you realize, okay, this is a big problem for an entire market, and how did you realize that?
We did our market research in the beginning. So first we thought it was just a problem in Romania because that's where we started. And we were like, okay, what's the digital out-of-home market in Romania? Back when we first had the idea, I think the whole market was like 6 million or something, which is a minuscule market. But then we were like, okay, let's check other major markets. And we looked at the US, we did a bit of research, we started asking some people, and we realized the same problem exists there. So it's kind of it's not a problem that varies from country to country. It's actually a problem that comes from the technical and from the way businesses are set up in the media landscape. And when we realized, hey, if we're able to fix this in a major market like US or Asia, China is one of the largest digital out-of-home markets. We started with the US because it's more familiar to us. But we realized it's a problem that goes beyond borders, and if we can fix it, then that's a huge opportunity for us. And it also is exciting because we let kind of the small guys have a voice, and that's just fun to do.
Just a mission there.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, we want to build a business that's exciting and that has kind of a positive output. I'm not saying that everything that we do has meaning. Some things are just advertising. Sometimes you just have to sell a can of Coke. But other times it's exciting because you get to do stuff that's for an NGO or that's for.
I think you had recently an ad with someone raising for a kidney or something like that.
We had one a while ago, in Times Square, with someone who was raising money for a kidney transplant, and they actually raised money, so they managed to do it. We had stuff in Romania with Salvați Copii, for example. They did a very successful fundraising campaign with us through billboards, and many, many other cases. Those are kind of the nice things. The majority of them are commercial and are pretty straightforward, but even those, at least they're creative. At least we give people a chance to do something fun on billboards rather than just saying, and something different rather than just saying, buy one, get one free. Okay.
How many founders are you right now?
There's 4 of us. That's how we started. Yeah.
And how did you end up together?
Pretty straightforward. We were working on a totally different project at the time. It was actually something very similar to what Flipboard or Flipchart? Flipboard. Yeah. It was something very similar to what Flipboard became. I don't know why I call it Flipchart. But our idea was very, very early. And when we saw that Flipboard, I think, raised, 20 million or something, we realized that we're too late for it. And we worked well together. So we said, okay, let's drop this idea because we're too late to the game. And let's figure out if we end up doing something else. And that's how eventually Blindspot came to life. And we started working on it from there.
And what did every of them bring in the team, like from a background perspective, and how did that help basically the early days? And if you felt like something was missing when you started, maybe something you would add right now, someone else or some other skills in the team.
I think we were pretty fortunate to have a diverse skill set and diverse personalities as well. I had background on the marketing and advertising side, not that much at the time, because when we first met, I was like 20 years old, and I was working in the industry for like 2 years, so I was still super fresh. Since we met, it's been like 14 years or something like that, almost. Yeah. So I was on the comms and advertising and marketing side. Bogdan, our CEO, was on the executive side, so he kind of brought us all together, and he was the binding force of everything. Then Dan is more on the operations side, and our final co-founder Abdel has a lot of experience. He used to work at Google, HP, and he's
a technical.
He's not technical, but he's very good with establishing businesses in emerging markets. So that's kind of his background. He was one of the first employees for Google Cloud in Dubai, in the UAE. So he helped us he was the most experienced of all of us at the time, not necessarily in a startup, but he understood kind of the complex mechanisms of working in a market like the UAE or other kind of complex mechanisms. So he was the one that was, for example, now that we've become bigger and we need more procedures and more stuff that's more kind of corporate, if you want, Abdel's experience is super helpful, right? So that's kind of how we fill the gaps.
And you can just keep playing with your viral marketing ideas and let him do the not so fun part.
I mean, I realize I'm not a corporate guy, and I probably never will be. So it's good that we have that balance between us.
I mean, looking at your LinkedIn, I don't know if a corporation would hire you.
That's exactly what I want to build this cage around me so that I don't have a choice. Just go totally unhinged. Nobody will ever hire me again. So now I will be a startupper for life.
Definitely.
That was the plan anyway. But it's just funny.
It's like the guys with the red stripe on the ID card.
Exactly. Yeah. Just destroying all bridges.
Exactly.
I'm joking. But yeah.
And your marketplace. How hard was it to break this chicken and egg problem, and how did you manage it?
The marketplace system is one of the most difficult systems to set up.
I just saw yesterday, I think it was it was a picture from a guy in San Francisco on Twitter. He was working on his laptop and in a coffee shop or something, and at the back of the lead he printed like a marketplace pre-revenue need money.
Yeah. That's kind of what you have to figure out first. Realistically, okay, perfect scenario, you build both at the same time. You build supply and demand, or you have demand waiting, and the moment you have supply, you immediately generate revenue. That is a utopia. Would be great. I'm sure there's probably 2 businesses in the world that manage to figure that out, but there's a 99.9% probability you won't figure that out. So usually the best approach for a marketplace, or the approach that worked for us at least, is to focus mostly on supply in the beginning. Sure, create some pipeline, don't ignore it completely, but it's kind of an 80-20 split, 80% supply, 20% demand. And either raise money in order to be able to survive until you have enough revenue, or just have an extremely lean and efficient team that you don't spend a ton of money while building the supply. Once you build the supply, the good part with this type of business is that it's kind of impossible to fail once you hit a certain threshold. Because you have the supply doesn't go away, and you have pipeline incoming. If you build a smart enough inbound engine the way we did, we know that this could function until the end of time. I mean, okay, not the end of time, that's a bit too dramatic, but at least as long as something dramatic like COVID doesn't happen, we're good. It can work organically without almost any input for us, which is rare for a startup. Most startups, you have to put coal in, otherwise they die, simply because they're kind of artificially maintained. Ours can actually float. Obviously, if you put coal, it goes even faster, which is great, and that's what we're doing. But even if we run out of coal for whatever reason, it can still float, which is an important, because that's how you build a healthy business. And that was our mindset from the start, because we knew we didn't have crazy access to capital. We have to build something that works rather than something that just spends money. Sure, we raised a few millions over the year, but we had no idea if we were going to be able to raise that money or not. So that was kind of just an added benefit to everything.
Why didn't you raise more money? Okay, the obvious reasons we didn't have access to, but maybe now or later on when you had access to, why shouldn't or maybe raise too much money? What are your thoughts here?
I mean, the reasons are obvious. Don't dilute yourself too much, and don't lose control of the company. And if it's working, you should have your own strategy for what the next years look like. And just because someone wants to throw money at you, it doesn't mean you want to take it necessarily. We've had opportunities where we said no to capital because they weren't good money for us. And
what does it mean? It's not good
smart money,
Okay.
So for example, if we were to raise money now from someone that can't really bring value to the business, meaning they don't have strategic connections, they're not that relevant for the next round, they're just another line on our cap table, that might be a problem, because we're not at the point where we need it. So the money that we do decide to bring on needs to be strategic money, and needs to make sense for the next phase of the business. Obviously, in the first year or two, that doesn't matter. You just want money as long as as long as you can spend it. It doesn't matter, right? But the more the business evolves, those things kind of change.
But did you have an experience like having on board early days? You took capital because you needed to, and ended up with some not that good investors, or...
So we were actually lucky. We almost had that situation. And I have friends who had that situation with the exact same person that we almost had the situation with. Things thankfully worked out in the sense that we didn't take their money. If we would have taken their money, I would have regretted it to this day. Honestly, 2 versions are possible. If we would have taken that money, either we would have quit the business by now just out of sheer frustration, or we would have found a way to buy back their shares and just say, okay, we need to part ways because this isn't working. And everyone that I've heard is going kind of through the same thing. It might seem, at the time, it seemed like a problem because we wanted their money, we didn't get their money, and we're like, oh no, what now? But looking back, it was one of the best things that ever happened to us. So kind of that's one thing that I would point out. Sometimes a bad situation ends up being a good situation when you look back. And it's important to kind of have that resilience as a founder and just push forward and say, okay, I didn't get the capital now. I'm just going to hunker down for another 2-3 months and find the capital somewhere else. There's a lot of money in the market. There's always a lot of money in the market. Even in a down market, there's still a lot of money there. There's a lot of money in Romania. If you want to raise from here, there's a lot of money in the region. Obviously, there's a ton of money in the US, but presuming you don't have access to that, you can still figure it out here, and your options are not as limited as you think they are.
How, from all of your previous rounds that you raised until now, how important was not being, I don't know, because we talked earlier that you generated a lot of revenue until now, not just burn the capital that you raised. So how important was to have that leverage when maybe negotiating or raising around?
It's the best case scenario. I mean, there's kind of two ways that I see that are kind of founder friendly when it comes to fundraising. One is you have a lot of hype and you're trending on, and you're riding a trending topic. Think AI a year and a half ago, or crypto 8 years ago, or social stuff 12 years ago, you name it, right? So there are trends like this and that's kind of the most obvious one. And you can have some traction, you can be the talk of the town. The problem with that is that if you're the talk of the town at that time, that's not going to last long. So you have maybe a few months tops to kind of build momentum with it. That's what UiPath did. That's what OpenAI is doing, right? However, the story that's not as popular is usually the story of a business that makes sense, is generating some revenue. They've raised money. They can be VC backed, but that means that you can choose your own timing. You don't have to wait for the perfect timing. You can just build your own timing. So that's what we're doing. And that's because our industry never had this kind of hype moment, right? Think of it that way. People have never really talked about advertising or marketing as the way they talk about AI right now, because it doesn't have that nature. It's not going to have
traditional industry kind of,
and it's not something that's necessarily consumer focused. Marketing has this weird perception that everybody thinks they know marketing, but in reality nobody knows marketing. So it's a whole thing, right? Which is why it's kind of clouded, and people, they won't talk about it. At least I don't think they will talk about it in my lifetime the way they talk about AI. But there's a ton of money there. So what we wanted to do is, first of all, kind of go a different route and say, look, raising $10 million to generate $1 million in revenue is not a business. That's like going on the street to someone and saying, here's $10, give me $1 back. That's not a business, right? Like anybody can do that. So we are like, okay, let's figure out how we can generate more revenue than the money that we're raising. And that's what took us a while. We've figured it out for the past years, which is weird. And when we go to VCs in the US and we tell them, look, we've generated more money than we've raised, their first question is why? And we're like, because that's what a business should do. And they're like, yeah, I guess. But it's a hype game. It's a bit different for them. So my point is, just make sure you know what game you're playing. Because if you're playing the first game, which is not wrong, there's a ton of people who've made money with that. I'm not trashing it. But then you don't care about revenue. You literally don't care. However, if you're playing the second game, which is a bit safer, and it's safer in the long run, make sure you don't care about the first game. That's why you've never seen an article about Blindspot raised X amount of money, right? If you look us up, you'll see the things that we did as a company, the commercial success that we've had, these type of things, but you will probably, I don't think we have any article that says Blindspot raises X amount of money. Although we've raised over $3 million.
I researched it and I couldn't find.
But that's why, because we're playing the second game, not the first one. However, other businesses, their main story is X raised this amount of money. Because they're playing the first version of the game. So again,
it's
A or B.
I see like so many times, especially with inexperienced founders, doing exactly this, like having a startup for the first game, but playing it by the rules of the second game, or vice versa. You're guaranteed to lose if you do that. At least, we were talking yesterday at the event that
you kind of need to know, we were talking about Fugazi.
Yeah.
Catalin Rus was saying it. And the thing with that is Americans know what they're talking about when it comes to Fugazi. So, it's ideal to say that, I want the money I want the hype from the A plan,
Yeah.
but I want the kind of serious approach of the B plan. You can't have both. You need to pick,
Yep.
It's like there's a Romanian saying which I can't really translate for this. It starts with your soul in heaven and something else somewhere else. It's tough to translate that one, so
Yes,
whoever
yes.
gets it.
Exactly.
It is what it is. You can't have both.
Yeah.
You can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
Would be the English
Yeah,
version
yeah,
of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
But
yeah. Yep. How do you think that? How linked is this with your personality as founders, and maybe your appetite to risk?
It's definitely super linked. I'm not sure if it's related to appetite for risk, because I have a high appetite for risk, and the first version of what we were talking about is definitely riskier. But I also have a very kind of fine-tuned bullshit filter, and because of that, I can't even bullshit myself. And for the first version, at some point, you need to bullshit yourself as well. You kind of need to lie to yourself and kind of believe the fake it till you make it type of approach. That doesn't work for me, because at some point my conscience acts up. It's not, and it's like, that's not true. You're overselling it. And I'm like, yes, I know I'm overselling it. And then I have to tone it down, So that's why the second version fits me better, because I know I can focus on things that have actual value in the long run. And I know that I'm not that good at the first version of the game. There's people who are amazing at the first version of the game. I was talking in one of the panels yesterday, I was talking about a friend of mine, American, who was talking to me on a Tuesday, telling me how great his business was going and that he's going to raise hundreds of millions of dollars and that it's never been better. And the day after, on a Wednesday, he declares bankruptcy. And I asked him, dude, were you lying to me? Because I get it. You were lying because whatever, you wanted something from me at least. And he says, no. That was Tuesday. Tuesday was doing great. Was going great.
Wow.
But he was actually lying to himself. That was the mindset that he was in. I could never do that. Like, if I know I'm one day away from bankruptcy, you won't see me here smiling and being thrilled and selling. If I'm one day away from bankruptcy, I'm going to be heads down trying to fix it. But that doesn't fit the first scenario. It's not a good mindset for the first scenario. So that's why I need to be in scenario number 2, because that's a game that's better. Some people are good at tennis. Other people are good at basketball.
Yep.
You kind of need to figure out what you're good at and stick to it. Or if you want to play the first game, make sure you get good at it. You can learn these things. It's not just personality, but make sure that you adapt to the game that you're playing. Don't play, basketball with a golf ball, because it's not going to work.
Yeah, definitely. Going a bit in another direction now, like, you have a ton of experience in everything regarding marketing, running big campaigns and so on and so forth. You're also the proud owner of the most upvoted Reddit post. What was that all about, so that everyone knows the context a bit? Yeah,
so that was a billboard during the GameStop saga in 2021. And it was a billboard that said, GME go brr. And brr is the sound that the money printer makes, because it was printing money, And we put that message up on a billboard in Times Square, took a video of it, uploaded that video to Reddit, and it just blew up. Like, everybody was talking about it. It became the most upvoted Reddit post of all time. It still is. And that got us featured everywhere, from Business Insider to Wall Street Journal. I was on an ABC documentary. The billboard is featured on an HBO documentary as well. It's literally everywhere. So that kind of was our first great success in the US, and we used that to propel ourselves forward and build on it.
What's your approach like when doing the different campaigns that you do for Blindspot? What helped you the most? What are some of the strategies that worked the best for you guys?
I mean, I think it's the same like I've done for any business or any client when I was on the agency side. You need to figure out what you're trying to generate or build with that campaign, right? People will say, I'm trying to generate money. It's not that easy. You have to have some intermediary KPIs. Of course, the end goal is to make money. But if that's the whole brief, then all you're going to do is say, 10% off because I want to sell more, which is not a successful campaign usually, right? So for us, when we did the GameStop thing, we knew that we needed something to build trust in the US because we didn't have any experience in the US. Although I was decently well known in Romania, that meant nothing in the US. So things were going well here because people knew my name and they trusted my experience. But in New York, I was literally nobody. So we needed something that could give us credibility. And coming and saying we're the guys behind the most upvoted rate post of all time gave us that credibility. So that was the purpose of the campaign initially. And then we realized that we had that and we would start every conversation with that and the close rate would jump from 1% to 50%. We closed almost everything that we talked to simply because we now have the credibility and the experience and the expertise and people know that we know what we're talking about. So that's kind of the first thing. Figure out what you're trying to build. What are the intermediary steps? Are you trying to get awareness? Are you trying to build trust? Because sometimes it's not enough to build awareness because you're not trustworthy. If you're at the first stage of the business and you're trying to, change the fintech world and introduce a new way of banking, right? Which is one of the most common taglines I've ever heard, but everybody uses it for some reason. The first question is not, people need to hear about us because then we'll be successful. The first question is, why would people trust you? And a lot of startups forget about the trust factor. There's a million other people trying to sell stuff and you only get one chance at the first impression. And if you don't have a very credible story to tell in the beginning, that first impression is wasted. And it'll be really tough to change their mind afterwards.
There are so many ways to do marketing campaigns, drive traffic, users and so on. I know, SEO, content. We are now talking so much about viral content and how to create viral TikToks and Instagrams and so on and so forth. What would you recommend to a startup that's, right now preparing their maybe go-to-market strategy? I know that it's super general question and depends a lot of what they are building, but what would be some of the mechanics that you would think about, some of the things that you would start looking at when creating something like that?
So I would start with focusing on what you're good at. That means that if you have a very technical team and you're not necessarily the most creative person in the world, don't try to write funny content or do viral sketches or stuff like that because it's not a fit for you. Focus on performance marketing, just try to optimize those PPC costs, try to get the conversion rate up. It's very mathematical. It doesn't require a ton of creativity. It's not easy, but it will fit your personality better and you're more likely to succeed. On the opposite side, if you're a super creative person and you hate the technical side of things and you don't want to spend time optimizing a pixel tracker and focusing and noticing what the conversion rates are, then focus on something creative, especially when you're doing your first kind of initiatives. Focus on the low-hanging fruit, and the low-hanging fruit is usually what fits your personality. You can, like you said, you can literally do anything from SEO. We figured out, for example, for us, it was more the creative stuff, but then the more we matured, it was the more technical stuff. So we had to kind of do both at the same time. The creative stuff keeps us top of mind, but it's the technical stuff that brings inbound traffic all the time. So at some point you'll have to do both, but when you're first starting out, focus on the one that feels more familiar because you will have to kind of exude your personality through the campaigns. And it's very unlikely for you to be able to do that through a channel or way that's not familiar to you.
Beside the most upvoted Reddit post, you had a couple others, campaigns and posts that become super popular and viral. From your perspective, what would be the anatomy of a viral campaign, on how can you get there? Is there some tips and tricks?
Yeah. I don't think there's a formula for it, but the things that you should take into consideration, you should look at timing. Timing matters a ton. If you are even a few hours late, sometimes the campaign won't have the same impact, especially if you're doing some type of real-time marketing thing. Timing is one. The second is kind of cultural impact. You really need to understand the topic that's happening and what's kind of the underlying problem. Look at politics right now. What's the debate that's happening right now? And if you look at American politics, it doesn't matter who you like, but the debate there is pretty much common sense and kindness versus aggressive capitalism. So that's kind of the story that's being told. So whatever you do has to kind of fit between those storylines in order for it to be relevant. Another thing that I think is important is kind of making sure that the content that you put out, it can be explained through a screenshot. If you look at, that's what we tell people on billboards as well. Don't put a 10-second video. Put something that people can take a screenshot or only a picture of and they can immediately understand it. Because if you have to explain it through a 10-second video, it's way too long. So it should be something that you can forward like as a meme to a friend and they immediately understand the context. If it's something that requires a lot of explanation and I need to tell you, David, this is hilarious because this is what happened a week ago and that guy said this thing and here's a 10-second video that explains that and then here's the pun, you're going to lose a ton of people along the way. So it has to be short and punchy, it has to have great timing, and it has to be very culturally relevant in the conversation that's happening.
What are some of the greatest campaigns that you run through Blindspot? And I know either the ones that were most successful or that you kind of loved the most.
I mean, we've run a ton. We run thousands of campaigns per year for our clients. Because think of this, we have over 21,000 advertisers registered on the platform. Wow. So some of them run daily campaigns, others run campaigns once a year. It depends. I just remember the funny things that happened or the things that I thought were really impressive. We've had people that advertised themselves for jobs through billboards and they got jobs. We had people who raised money using billboards. They targeted VC funds saying, hey, I have this business, I want to raise money, and they raised money. We've had, even in the US, we've had this year our first political campaign. So we ran a political campaign for one of the candidates, which was extremely successful. And we've done a ton of stuff for small and medium startups that maybe raised a few millions of dollars and we're trying to figure out marketing. The thing that I love about what we're doing is that we give people an alternative to Facebook and Google. We use Facebook and Google too. But if that's your only option because everything else is closed off, that becomes very kind of limited. And we get to do a ton of fun stuff that people take pictures in front of. We've done stuff for Wall Street bets. We have like Reddit communities who keep using our platform. We've done things for various crypto stuff. We had people do stuff for Eminem's birthday, for example. We did stuff. We worked with Snoop Dogg back in the day. We still do some small
birthday declarations.
Birthday declarations. Yeah, we launched a few of Snoop's albums. We did stuff with Kanye West before he went in a different direction. Let's call it that. What else? Did stuff for Gap. So I kind of love almost every campaign that we do. Some of them are extremely crazy and there's stuff that you would not expect to see on a billboard. Some of them are more traditional and those work as well. So I don't think I can choose a few, but those are the few that come to mind.
You mentioned Facebook, all this digital social media platforms for advertising. How do you see yourselves, kind of competition, kind of complementary place?
It's definitely complementary because we use Facebook and Google as well, and Facebook and Google use billboards to market Facebook and Google. So it's definitely complementary. Billboards are kind of an assisted conversion medium, right? So the way it works is it's very rare for you to see a billboard and immediately pull out your phone and buy that product. The same way, it's pretty rare for you to only see a Facebook ad and then immediately buy the product that you see. It's usually a more complex journey. You see stuff online or on a billboard. You then talk to someone about that product. Then you see it again. Then it's the traditional funnel essentially, and you go from awareness to understanding to comparing and eventually buying. So billboards can influence the trust factor and it can influence the top of mind that people have for a product.
That's what I wanted to ask you. I think that adding also this into your funnel especially builds trust, because when you see something like this on a real billboard, it's like, okay, these guys are for real.
So I can give you an example. In the US, we can do a lot of tracking with the billboard. So one thing that we did for a client, this is
how does the tracking work?
Mobile tracking. It's because the privacy laws are a bit more lenient. You can actually track people that are in front of the billboard. It's anonymized, so it's not. Nothing. No invasion of privacy. But the way it works is you create two cohorts. Cohort one is people who are in front of the billboard at the exact second when the ad was running. And you can then see if those people from their phone or from their laptop, because you can actually see if they're on the same IP address when they go home and connect to the Wi-Fi, if they ever went to the client's website. So this client, where we have an actual case study, is called Adore Me. So Adore Me is a fashion brand, a lingerie brand. They're from France originally. They actually have an office in Bucharest as well, but they sell to the US, to an US audience mostly. They were recently bought by Victoria's Secret.
Aren't the founders Romanians?
I think one of the founders is
I think I met them here in the Fortress.
Oh, that's awesome.
For some event. I think it was Unchained. Anyway.
So they're a client. They're a client of ours. And one campaign that's public, and I can talk about it, we actually have the case study published on our website. We did this campaign for them. I think it was in October or November last year, where we did this experiment. We ran the campaign, and then we looked if people who were exposed to the campaign, so who walked in front of the billboard when the actual Adore Me ad was running, if they were more likely to buy things from Adore Me's website once they ended up on the website, right? And what we noticed is that the same people, so say I would walk in front of the billboard, but you would not. So I would see that you were never in proximity of any of the billboards, so there's a 0% likelihood that you saw that billboard. People who are exposed to the billboards were 3 times more likely to buy once they ended up on the website. So that means that essentially you have a higher ROI from your digital campaigns, because you then run a Facebook ad, and if I end up on the website and I also saw the billboard, I'm 3 times more likely to buy, and I was also 2 times more likely to visit the website. So it contributes to different parts of the funnel as well.
Do you also do some sort of reports or studies that, I don't know, people can get insights from?
So this is one of the reports that we do. This is a more complex one, but for each campaign that you do, the same way you have reports from Facebook or Google, you see reports. It's usually impressions and number of plays, but we can get into more complex stuff for larger campaigns like this one. This one is called a mobile attribution campaign or study.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I didn't expect to be that high, the influence that a billboard has.
With the right creative, it can have that influence. If the creative is not made for out of home or is pretty boring, then there's a very low chance for it to have that impact.
How do you see in the future evolving this like two kind of worlds? You have the social media and all this digital place advertising places, and this like physical real world places interacting together better, especially now maybe also with the AI in place.
So my theory is that physical will become more important because you won't know what's real or not in the digital space. It's not going to supersede digital. Online will still be the number one kind of place. But I think having a physicality to your product will be more important than ever, because it will be a way to differentiate, meaning that anybody can run a Facebook ad, anybody can run a Google ad, or anybody with AI will be able to create a fake video about their product. But in order to run a campaign on a billboard, it needs to be actually approved by us and by the landlords, and that gives it authority. It's affordable, anybody can do it, but it goes through a process that kind of qualifies you as a real business or a real person. And I think that will matter a lot, and it will be still complementary, and you'll have people doing the majority of their reach online, and maybe ideally I would say you need to allocate anywhere between 10 to 15% of your budget to out of home in order for it to make sense. You can do more, obviously, and there's clients that have done more, but I would say that's where the average.
On the brand and product.
Depends on the type of the brand, depends if you have physical stores or not. Right now, I would say that's kind of the sweet spot. If you are anywhere between, let's say 10 and 20, if you're anywhere between, if 10 to 20% of your budget goes to out of home, you probably have a good mix between online and offline. And obviously you can add CTV to that and other things, but usually the split is 60% digital, 40% non-digital, CTV, other stuff, radio, out of home. That's kind of the traditional, a split that I would consider a healthy one.
How do you see AI coming into this industry, and what trends did you see already, disrupting in the industry?
For us, it will replace a lot of the unnecessary work hours or man hours that are spent. For example, when it comes to media plans, like I think AI will replace the traditional media agency, and we actually have a solution in the works that does that, which is essentially the way you buy a billboard right now. If you're a traditional brand, is you call or email your agency, you ask for a plan. In a week, they send you a plan. Then you send feedback. Everything happens via email and spreadsheets. You give feedback. Eventually, you agree on the plan. Then they reach out to each individual landlord and they start setting everything up. And then you maybe receive a report in a spreadsheet, right? Realistically, that's not a skill it's not a soft skill. It's something super straightforward. So that can be done with AI. What can't be done with AI is the creative planning of the campaign. So I think that the AI part will replace the media planner. It will contribute to the creative part as well. Meaning, for example, we're working on something that will give you insights on what the best campaigns for out of home are, based on awards, based on our own data, based on kind of everything that's available worldwide. But you'll still have to choose what the right message is for your brand, and that is a human-led initiative. It can't really be done by AI. So that's kind of our view for the industry. I think it's a good move for us. We're happy that it's happening, because a lot of the work that's happening in out of home right now is unnecessary. So I'm pretty excited about the next 5 years.
Do you already have some sort of AI implemented to your product, and how do you use it right now?
So we have a lot of AI stuff in the back end that helps you choose the right billboard, that tells you if there's availability or not. So it's the same way Booking has its kind of machine learning and AI algorithms in the back that knows what to recommend.
The rec engine.
Exactly. So kind of we have the same thing in the back end, and now we're working on the two things that I tell you, which are consumer facing. So those will be products that consumers can interface, that clients can interface with, and they'll be able to essentially plan a campaign. They can plan a campaign in minutes with our platform now. They're going to be able to do it in seconds with the AI tools that we're doing. So it saves a ton of time.
Going a bit maybe in a different direction with these questions, still regarding the AI. Yes, you live a lot also in the social media platforms, and you know them very well. With all this generated AI content, how will we make, know what's true and what's not? What filters can we build for ourselves personally, and also maybe, as a societal level?
I think we're going to become way more cynical, which I like. I'm a cynical person, and I think we need to be more cynical, which means that you'll always have kind of a seed of doubt in your mind. Is that real? And that's how I work right now. And that's how I ask myself each time I see a piece of news. I'm like, is this fake or not? So I think that's how society is going to function. Once you see a video, I hope we get rid of kind of confirmation bias, because people need to realize that platforms are throwing content that they think people will agree with. So you have to start asking yourself, am I seeing this because it's AI generated and the algorithm thinks I will agree with it, or because it's a real piece of information and this is actually happening? So hopefully society will have this kind of awakening. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a process. So I don't think we'll have kind of a eureka moment or anything. But I think slowly people who will be successful will be the ones who are able to understand how algorithms are trying to influence them, and step away from that influence and make decisions on their own. It's not going to be easy. It's the same way. I think it's similar to kind of raising a child. You have to raise yourself, and there's no science actually between. There's no science for raising a child. There are some things that are considered accepted, but it's half art, half science kind of thing, right? Otherwise, everyone would be amazing. And if it were a science, you could just say, this is what you need to do to raise a perfect child. But we don't really know, right? And I think that's how it will work with social media and with a lot of the fake and AI-generated content that exists out there. We are going to learn how to navigate through it. And the better you know how to navigate, the better you'll be as a person.
So your approach would be a pretty kind of liberal one where each individual will need to basically educate himself about this, not the more regulationist way where, imposing all sort of regulations on advertisers, creators, technology companies, and so on and so forth.
Definitely not, because I don't think regulation works. Look at Europe compared to US. Europe is in the same place where they were 40 years ago, and that's because of regulation. It doesn't work in the sense that it doesn't provide innovation. It doesn't work in the sense that it's not like society from a community standpoint is better than the US in Europe, right? We're still divided. There's still a lot of issues with immigration. There's still a lot of issue with, people hating each other and finding ways to harm each other. So it's not like Europe is amazing from a society perspective, but innovation is just a bit lower.
Yeah.
We have the same problems that the US does, but innovation is also way down.
So the deep issue is the cultural one.
That's always been the issue. So I think it's not a technological problem, it's a societal problem. And in order to do that, you need to focus on the individual, and you need to move them away from that kind of mindset of hatred and influence done by usually politicians and usually, interested parties that want people to not really think for themselves, right? I think you need some regulation, of course. It doesn't have to be the Wild West, and when it's not an anarchy. But I don't think this type of stuff, and especially innovation, I don't think the government can regulate it, even if it wants to. Even if we would say, yes, okay, regulate it, I don't think they have the means or the know-how in order how to properly regulate it. And you still have bad actors that are able to navigate those regulations and still impact society in a bad way.
You lived in US, you lived a year and a half or 2 years in South Korea.
Yeah, like a year in South Korea, about 2 years in New York, and 1 year in Miami.
Okay. Okay. So you have a broad East-West experience. Regarding the subject that we just touched on, how can we learn as Romanians and Romania, but also Europeans and Europe from what you saw, and what should change in order to at least start changing the narrative about Europe, which is worse and worse at the global level when it comes to innovation?
I think you have to experience a profoundly different culture at least once. If not, the more I experience different cultures, the better I kind of understand the good parts and the bad parts of my own culture, right? So I was born and raised in Romania, lived here until I was 27. And for the past 5 or 6 years, I've been moving around all the time. And that obviously comes with a lot of downsides, but it comes with the upside of being able to take the good parts from different cultures and applying it to my mindset. And that makes you more open-minded. It makes you understand your own bias. It makes you understand what works and what doesn't in your own culture, and also kind of helps you understand what works and what doesn't in other cultures. If you look at people who are born and raised in New York, they are so single-minded, and it's so obvious. And people raised anywhere and that have spent their whole life in a single place are also very single-minded. But I think New Yorkers specifically, because New Yorkers are taught that they're the best, and New York is the best city in the world, and it's an amazing city, don't get me wrong. But if that's your worldview, it's very likely that you don't have a complete perspective about things. You can still work and you can still function as a human being, but you're also extremely likely to be manipulated because you have a single view, and that's kind of very easy to work against. When you have a pretty diverse view, you can at least cherry pick what works and what doesn't, and you can understand the perspective of things a bit better. And also, I generally think you're happier if you have that perspective rather than, because otherwise, if you have kind of a single road and something doesn't work, you're immediately miserable because you're like, oh my God, I'm not on the exact track I'm supposed to be. But when you have kind of 10 different tracks, you understand that it's okay to go sometimes a bit left, sometimes a bit right, sometimes a bit centered. Kind of that's the way I would build my life, and that's the way I'm trying to build my life.
It's amazing how the flow of this interview goes, because basically my next question was, how do you see your life going kind of in the next, or what's next for Matei Psatta in the next, I don't know, 10 years? Where do you see yourself?
Hopefully I keep experiencing these types of new things. I enjoy novelty and I enjoy this type of innovation. And when I mean innovation, I mean new stuff, right? Even with Blindspot, I like taking bets that no one else has taken before. With whatever else will happen in the future, I have no idea if we'll still be doing Blindspot in 10 years. We'll keep doing it until it makes sense not to do it anymore. So it really depends on what life throws our way. We're pretty open to it. Obviously, we have a plan for Blindspot, and that plan is within that time frame. But plans change, it's the famous Mike Tyson quote. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? So we're used to getting punched in the face, so that's why I'm not that concerned anymore. And I hope we're able to kind of keep this type of flexibility about us. If that's my plan, just keep being flexible, focusing on being in a better place than I was last year, but not having a problem if I'm not, because I try to think in kind of not necessarily in a where will I be in 5 years, but my question to myself is, if I do this today, will I regret it in 20 years? That's kind of the question. And so far the question has been no. What I'm doing today and tomorrow and the next years, I don't think I'll regret these actions 20 years from now. And I want to keep living my life like that.
I have a similar question for myself, but mine it's like kind of the opposite how you put it. It's like, if I don't do this today,
sure, yeah,
will I regret it in 20 years?
Yeah, it can be proactive or passive. It's the same for me. Exactly, sometimes I have to make a choice, and I'm like, okay, if I don't make this choice, what will be the regret? That's what happened when I used to. So before starting Blindspot, I was the head of marketing at Vola.ro, and I remember Daniel Truică, which is the CEO and the founder. When we got the investment from Techstars for Blindspot, I went to Dani and I told him, I have a huge issue. I love working here. This place is like my adoptive child, but my biological child needs a father. So what do I do? I'm honestly torn. I was 50-50. I had no idea what was the right choice. And Dani told me one of the best pieces of wisdom that I've ever received, which was, go do Blindspot. Because if you don't, you're going to ask yourself what if for the rest of your life. Whereas if you go to Blindspot and it doesn't work for whatever reason within a year or two, you can always come back here or go to another place. You'll find a job. You're never going to ask yourself, oh, what if I stayed in my corporate job and everything was okay? That's not a big what if. That's kind of the standard.
Yeah. This is what I keep asking, especially the students and young people that we meet with. Because this is what I want to see more, like taking those bigger risks, because just, I don't know, having a good salary after you graduate a college and just, I don't know, going to coffees and traveling. Okay, that's something that you could do, but at least wait for your 30s, in my opinion.
My opinion here is that 90% of people should do that. 90% of people should go down the beaten path and should find a comfy job and should be happy with themselves. First of all, because society would collapse if everyone was an entrepreneur. Society, please don't become an entrepreneur, because we are fucked as a society if that happens.
So you don't believe in the solopreneur state?
No, not a state. I think there's a sweet spot, and I think that sweet spot is probably around 10% of people need to be entrepreneurs, or at least try to be entrepreneurs. Because otherwise, first of all, there's a very high probability of you being miserable a lot of the time doing that. You know, you're going to be miserable even if it works out at the end. Even if you look at Juan Jensen, the NVIDIA CEO, even if you look at the majority of people who've made it, they tell you the path was miserable. And I will say the same thing. It's been a roller coaster. It's been, the highs are very high and the lows are very low. Overall, it's a miserable journey. Would I do it again? Yes, because I like being miserable. I enjoy the challenge. When people tell me don't do something, that's how I laugh with my fiancée, that she knows that every time she wants me to do something, she tells me, oh, I don't think you're able to do that actually. And I'm like, okay, now I'm going to do it. But that's me, you know, that's my mindset. And if everybody was like this, we would have a problem as a society, you know. The same way we would have a problem if everyone was very compliant.
We have to rewrite the whole law, like, instead of don't do that, do that.
Yeah, you're allowed to do everything. Okay, then I don't care. So that's why we need balance. And it's okay. I just want to tell people watching this, it's okay if you don't like being an entrepreneur, if you don't think it fits you, it's fine. It's not supposed to fit you. You know, you're an oddball, you're the weirdo if it fits you. And not everyone, it's wishful thinking, oh, I'm a weirdo, I'm so different. No, most people aren't, and that's okay. And I'm compared to other extreme entrepreneurs like Musk, Zuckerberg, I'm not a weirdo at all. I'm very laid back and I accept that. I know I'm not going to be that type of entrepreneur because they have a certain type of crazy that does not fit me. I have a different type of crazy that works in certain parameters, and I know my parameters and I try to navigate around them. But yeah, I went on a rant, sorry. But that's something that I'm very passionate about.
Nice. Just one last question for you, Matei. So, I know, 10 years, 15 years from now, you're a successful, exited founder. What would you see yourself doing?
Probably starting another company and doing, I always see myself doing something. I don't know if it's going to be starting my own company or helping other companies or helping other people start their companies. But I like the thrill of doing something new.
So you didn't start building a startup just to retire after you?
No, definitely not. So I think presuming, that's why I think that no matter how much, because people usually think about the money and that's kind of the mindset. Oh, once I have 10 million in the bank, you know, after tax, then I'll retire. I don't see myself doing that. Like, I'll probably take a few weeks off, do something that I like that I couldn't do before. I don't know what, honestly, because I kind of did most of the things that I wanted to do. But I just think I would do the same things, and I maybe would take even bigger risks because I would have a bigger safety net. And I have a safety net now as well, but probably having that will just mean that I can do crazier stuff because even if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. Now I have to manage that risk a bit more. So that's the only thing that I think would change in my lifestyle. Otherwise, I would kind of keep doing the same thing.
Thank you so much, Matei.
Thank you.
It was an incredible conversation.
Appreciate
I loved the rant at the end.
Yeah.
All the best to you, personally, professionally. Finger crossed for Blindspot to go big and hear more wonderful stories. Thank you, and keep doing the great job you're doing on LinkedIn and everywhere else.
Thank you, David.
Thanks
Pleasure.